As you can see from the Q4 results, the marketing intelligence team has delivered unprecedented ROI across all verticals. I'm midway through slide 32, when CEO Malcolm Harding raises his manicured hand. The boardroom falls silent. 20 executives in $1,000 suits suddenly look anywhere but at me. That's enough, David. His voice is flat, emotionless. We've made a decision. My fingers freeze on the presentation clicker. I'm sorry? We're shutting marketing intelligence. Effective immediately, the words hit like physical blows. My vision tunnels. Blood rushes to my ears. This is a joke, right? I stammer, looking around the gleaming oak table. Faces I've worked with for 7 years stare back with practiced neutrality. Only Vivian, CFO, has the decency to look uncomfortable. Your division is a money drainer, barks COO Preston Foster, Malcolm's right hand. External consultants are way cheaper. Cheaper than the department that just increased revenue by 38%? My voice rises sharply. The same department that was supposed to receive recognition today as the company's best division? Malcolm sighs theatrically. David, please don't make this difficult. The board vote was unanimous. I scan the faces again. Gerald, who played at my wedding. Sarah, whose kid I mentored through college applications. Raj, who I supported through his divorce. Unanimous, I repeat, the word tasting like copper. We've prepared severance packages. Vivian murmurs, sliding a sleek folder toward me. For your entire team, very generous. My team, 17 people who've poured their souls into this company, who have no idea what's happening right now. They're being informed as we speak, Malcolm says, reading my thoughts. My stomach plummets. You're firing them while I'm in here? It's cleaner this way, Preston says, checking his watch. Security is helping them gather their things. I grab the table edge to steady myself. 7 years. 7 fucking years. David, Malcolm warns. And you don't even let me tell my own team. That's enough, Preston snaps. We appreciate your contributions, but business decisions aren't personal. A quiet, savage laugh escapes me. Not personal? You staged this like a public execution. My presentation remains frozen on the screen. Our division's success metrics glowing obscenely above the heads of people who just destroyed everything we built. I straighten my shoulders, a strange calm descending. I extend my hand to Malcolm. Then Preston. Then around the table, one by one, looking each board member in the eye. Some grip firmly. Others barely touch my palm. Thank you for the opportunity, I say, voice steady now. I'll see myself out. I walk to the door, each step measured. Just before exiting, I turn back. You've made a catastrophic mistake, but that's your privilege. The door closes behind me with a soft, expensive click. That evening, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city skyline, a glass of whiskey untouched in my hand. 7 years. 2,555 days of my life given to Meridian Global Partners. I remembered my first day, the eager handshakes, the ambition burning bright enough to power the building. I'd arrived at 6 a.m. and left at 10 p.m., determined to make an impression. That pattern never really changed. My marriage had. Sandra stuck it out for 4 years before finally admitting what we both knew. I was married to my job first. She left during a business trip to Singapore, her goodbye note waiting on our kitchen counter when I returned. I couldn't even blame her. How many anniversaries had I missed? How many dinners had gone cold? The marketing intelligence division had been my brainchild. I could still picture Malcolm's skeptical expression when I first pitched it. A specialized team dedicated to analyzing consumer behavior across digital platforms at a level of granularity our competitors couldn't match. Give me 6 months, I'd pleaded. If I don't deliver results, shut it down, no questions asked. Those first 6 months nearly killed me. I developed insomnia, lost 15 pounds, and worked through 2 bouts of pneumonia. But we delivered. Then we exceeded expectations. Then we revolutionized how Meridian approached market analysis altogether. I built my team carefully, personally, recruiting each member. Zoe, our data scientist, who turned down Google to work with us. Marcus, our strategist, who had the sharpest mind I'd ever encountered. Elena, fresh from grad school, whose innovative approaches repeatedly broke new ground. I'd known their children's names, their anniversaries, their dreams. We celebrated birthdays with embarrassingly elaborate cakes. When Marcus's mother was diagnosed with cancer, I'd rearranged the entire department schedule so he could take her to treatments without using sick days. When Zoe adopted her daughter, we converted a storage closet into a temporary nursery. We weren't just colleagues. We were family, and now they were gone, escorted out by security while I'd been kept distracted in that boardroom. I took a long sip of whiskey, finally feeling its burn. The quarterly reports from the past 3 years were spread across my coffee table, evidence of our consistent growth, our innovation, our value. I'd brought them home in a daze, unable to leave them behind. The truth was dawning slowly, painfully. This wasn't about performance or cost-cutting. This was calculated, personal. 2 months ago, I'd challenged Preston's decision to outsource our consumer research to his brother-in-law's firm. I'd presented evidence that the data they provided was methodologically flawed. Malcolm had sided with me, a rare public defeat for Preston. Now I understood the long glances between board members during my presentation today, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms in recent weeks. They'd been planning this, orchestrating my division's execution while simultaneously preparing to recognize our success, a grotesque corporate ballet. I thought of my team members, mortgages, school tuitions, medical bills. Elena had just signed a lease on a new apartment. Marcus's mother was still undergoing treatment. The severance packages would help, but that wasn't the point. They'd been discarded, their contributions erased with the stroke of a pen. Their innovations would likely be repackaged and presented as the brainchild of Preston's brother-in-law's consulting firm within months. I picked up my phone, scrolled through dozens of missed calls and messages from my team. Their confusion, anger, and hurt poured through the screen. I owed them answers I didn't have, comfort I couldn't provide. My finger hovered over Elena's message. What did we do wrong? When something shifted inside me. A cold clarity replaced the churning emotions. They hadn't done anything wrong. We hadn't done anything wrong. I placed the phone down and walked to my home office, pulling out a leather-bound notebook I hadn't touched in years. Inside were contingency plans, ideas too risky or unconventional for Meridian's conservative culture. Innovations I'd kept private, knowing they'd be attributed to others if shared. I began to write, methodically, precisely. The whiskey remained untouched as night deepened into morning. I rented a small office in a co-working space downtown, far from Meridian's gleaming headquarters. Nothing fancy, just a desk, a chair, and reliable internet. I paid 6 months in advance, cash. No paperwork connecting it to my name. The first week was about listening. I reached out to my former team individually, meeting for coffee or drinks, letting them vent their anger and confusion. I said little, nodding sympathetically, offering no promises or plans. Just support and a willing ear. Preston's brother-in-law's consulting firm already reached out to me, Marcus mentioned during our meeting at a quiet corner table in a cafe 3 blocks from Meridian. Offering a contract position at 60% of my former salary, no benefits. I sipped my Americano. Face neutral. Interesting timing. They've approached everyone from our team, he added, watching me carefully. Lower rates across the board. I nodded, filing the information away. What are you thinking of doing? He leaned forward, voice low. I'm waiting to see what you do. I changed the subject, but the interaction repeated itself across different locations, different team members. They were waiting, watching, trusting. In my anonymous office, I assembled a wall of information. Meridian stock performance, board member connections, client relationships, market position, media coverage. I cross-referenced everything, identifying patterns, vulnerabilities, pressure points. I studied Preston's brother-in-law's consulting firm, Apex Analytics, researched their client list, their methodologies, their deliverables, found reviews from former employees on obscure forums, noted complaints about data manipulation and corner cutting. At night, I drafted emails from an untraceable account to former clients who had expressed dissatisfaction with Apex's work. Simple questions about their experience, phrased as market research. The responses trickled in, frustrations, disappointments, suspicions of inflated results. I began attending industry events again, maintaining a careful facade of someone exploring options. When asked about my departure from Meridian, I smiled, pleasantly. Sometimes companies make strategic pivots. Change is healthy. The lack of bitterness or gossip surprised people, made them curious. At one such event, I bumped into Vivian, Meridian's CFO. She pulled me aside, voice hushed. "I didn't know what they were planning," she insisted. "Not the full extent." I maintained my pleasant expression. "It's business, Vivian. Nothing personal." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you up to now?" "I've heard rumors you're consulting." "Just taking some time to consider next steps," I replied evenly. "How's the new arrangement working out?" She hesitated. "There have been adjustment challenges." I nodded sympathetically. "Change management is always difficult. I'm sure Preston has it under control." "Preston," she repeated, watching my face. "Yes. Well, good to see you, David." After she left, I made a note. Vivian, potential leverage. 3 months after the layoff, I incorporated a new entity, Phoenix Analytics, registered through a complex structure that obscured my connection to it. I leased modest but professional office space with a month-to-month agreement. Then I waited 2 more weeks before approaching Elena, the youngest and most innovative member of my former team. "I'm starting something new," I told her over coffee. "Something built on integrity and true data science. No promises yet, but would you be interested in hearing more?" Her eyes lit up. "When can I start?" One by one, I quietly recruited my former team members, not all at once, not dramatically, but in a careful sequence designed to minimize attention. Each signed strict confidentiality agreements. Each brought unique knowledge, connections, and most importantly, loyalty born from shared injustice. We worked silently, systematically, analyzing Meridian's client base, identifying the accounts most vulnerable to poaching, those that had worked directly with our team, those that had expressed dissatisfaction since our departure, those with contracts coming up for renewal. I never mentioned revenge, never spoke Malcolm's or Preston's names. Instead, I focused on building something better, something honest, something innovative. The hunger for vindication simmered beneath every spreadsheet, every strategy session, every late night. 6 months after being discarded, we were ready to emerge from the shadows. The first domino fell with such subtlety that no one at Meridian even noticed. Westbrook Financial, a mid-sized but prestigious client, had been managed primarily by Marcus before our layoff. Their quarterly review meeting with Apex Analytics, Preston's brother-in-law's firm, ended with polite handshakes but no commitments. 2 days later, their CFO called my private line. "That approach you mentioned," he said without preamble. "The one focusing on millennial investment patterns. We'd like to see a proposal." Phoenix Analytics delivered a comprehensive strategy that Apex couldn't hope to match, because it utilized methodologies I'd been developing but never shared at Meridian. We secured a 6-month trial contract at a rate 15% below Meridian's pricing. Instructed my team, "No gloating, no mentions of Meridian. We simply deliver excellence." 3 weeks later, Westbrook's CMO called her counterpart at Callahan Industries, another Meridian client. A quiet recommendation, another meeting, another account shifted to Phoenix. We moved methodically, targeting one client at a time, never poaching aggressively, always appearing to be the reluctant recipient of business that was seeking better service. The strategy kept us beneath Meridian's radar for nearly 2 months. Meanwhile, Elena led a parallel operation. She'd identified vulnerabilities in Apex's data collection methods, shortcuts they took that compromised data integrity. We documented everything, compiled evidence, but released nothing. Not yet. The first hint that Meridian had noticed something amiss came during an industry conference in Chicago. I was discussing predictive analytics with a group of potential clients when I spotted Malcolm across the room, staring at me with undisguised surprise. I nodded politely and continued my conversation. 20 minutes later, Preston cornered me. At the bar. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" he demanded, lowering his voice as others looked our way. I smiled pleasantly, enjoying the conference. The panel on consumer behavior was fascinating. "Cut the crap, David. We know you've been contacting our clients." I took a sip of sparkling water. "Former clients, actually. They contacted us. Free market and all that." His face flushed. "If you think you can build some pathetic revenge business by undercutting us..." "Phoenix Analytics doesn't define itself in relation to Meridian," I interrupted calmly. "We're simply providing superior service at competitive rates. Isn't that what you wanted when you determined external consultants were way cheaper?" He leaned closer. "Watch yourself. You signed non-solicitation agreements." "Which I've honored scrupulously," I replied. "Check your records. Every client who's moved to Phoenix approached us first. We have the documentation." As he stormed away, I felt a flutter of satisfaction, the first crack in the facade. The next phase required perfect timing. Zoe had been monitoring Meridian's stock performance, which had begun showing concerning patterns since our team's departure. Their quarterly reports were maintaining appearances, but we knew the underlying data couldn't support their projections much longer. We accelerated our client acquisition strategy, focusing on Meridian's 3 largest accounts. Not to secure them, not yet, but to create uncertainty, to force Meridian to make promises they couldn't keep. Then came our riskiest move. I arranged a seemingly coincidental meeting with Vivian, Meridian's CFO, at her favorite lunch spot. "This isn't a coincidence, is it?" she asked immediately. "I wanted to give you a professional courtesy," I said, sliding a folder across the table, "before things get complicated." Inside was evidence that Apex Analytics had been manipulating data to maintain Meridian's market position. Evidence that would implicate Preston but potentially spare other board members if addressed internally. Vivian's face paled as she scanned the contents. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because despite everything, I believe you have integrity," I replied. "And because in 3 days, the Jackson Financial account will be reviewing their relationship with Meridian. They'll be asking questions about methodologies that Apex can't answer honestly. You're backing us into a corner." Her voice was barely audible. "I'm giving you a chance to address a problem before it becomes a crisis," I corrected. "What you do with that chance is entirely up to you." I left her with the folder and a business card. That evening, my secure email received a message. "We need to talk. Not at the office." 2 days later, Jackson Financial, Meridian's largest client, requested a comprehensive audit of all analytics provided over the past quarter. Preston assured them everything was in order. The audit was scheduled for the following week. The same day, a junior analyst at Apex Analytics contacted Phoenix through our website. He had documentation of systematic data manipulation directed by Preston and his brother-in-law. He was afraid of legal consequences. He wanted protection. The web was tightening, not through grand gestures or public accusations, but through the steady pressure of truth finding its way into the light. That night, I received an unexpected call from Malcolm himself. "Whatever you're doing," he said without greeting, "it needs to stop." "I'm building a business, Malcolm. Just like you taught me. People's livelihoods are at stake." The irony was so rich I almost laughed. "Now you're concerned about livelihoods? This isn't who you are, David. Vindictiveness doesn't suit you." I looked out my window at the city lights. "You never really knew who I was, Malcolm. That was your first mistake." I ended the call and sent a pre-drafted email to our team. Phase 3 begins tomorrow. The implosion began at 9:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I wasn't even in the office when it started. The Wall Street Journal published an investigative piece on data, manipulation in the financial analytics industry. Meridian wasn't named directly, but 3 of their key methodologies, all implemented by Apex after our departure, were flagged as potentially compromising client outcomes. By 10:30, Meridian's stock had dipped 3%. Not catastrophic, but enough to trigger attention. At 11:45, Jackson Financial's audit team arrived at Meridian a day earlier than scheduled. They requested access to raw data that Apex had previously claimed was proprietary. Preston stalled. claiming system issues. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. It's happening. Across town in our offices, we maintained normal operations, deliberately focusing on deliverables, behaving as if this were any other day. But every team member knew what was unfolding. The justice they'd waited for was cascading through the market with gathering force. At 1:13 p.m., Vivian called me. The board is in emergency session, she said without preamble. Preston is claiming sabotage. Is it sabotage to expose falsehoods? I asked mildly. No one at Phoenix has done anything but deliver honest work. Malcolm wants to meet, off-site. Just you and him. I'd anticipated this. The Riverside Hotel, 4 o'clock. I'll be at the bar. By 2:30, 3 more major clients had requested emergency reviews of their Meridian data. 2 had already contacted Phoenix for exploratory conversations. At 3:15, the whistleblower from Apex gave an anonymous interview to a financial news outlet, detailing how Preston had directed data manipulation to maintain the appearance of success after our team's departure. The stock dropped another 7%. When Malcolm found me at the Riverside Hotel bar, he looked 10 years older than he had 7 months ago. What do you want? He asked without sitting down. I gestured to the chair across from me. That's not the right question, Malcolm. He remained standing. Name your price to end this. This isn't about money. Then what? Revenge. You've had it. We're bleeding. I took a sip of water. The right question is, how could you let it happen? His face hardened. Business decisions. Stop, I interrupted. Not that corporate line. The real answer. You let Preston convince you to destroy something valuable, something irreplaceable. For what? Political convenience? To avoid confrontation? You knew we were your best division. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. You were challenging the system. We were improving it, I corrected. And you knew it. His phone began buzzing incessantly. He ignored it for several seconds before finally glancing down. The color drained from his face. Jackson Financial has terminated their contract. He whispered. Effective immediately. I nodded calmly. The first of many, I imagine. You've destroyed us. No, Malcolm. You destroyed yourselves the moment you chose expedience over integrity. I just made sure the consequences found you. His phone continued buzzing, the board, demanding answers, clients, pulling accounts, reporters, seeking comments. What do you want? He repeated, desperation edging into his voice. I stood, placing money on the bar for my water. Preston resigns by morning, a public statement, acknowledging the unethical practices at Apex, and reparation payments to every member of my team who was discarded. 1 year's salary, minimum. That's extortion. That's accountability, I corrected. Phoenix Analytics will continue acquiring clients based solely on the quality of our work. What happens to Meridian is entirely up to you now. As I walked away, his voice followed me. This won't bring your old job back. I turned, genuinely surprised. I never wanted it back, Malcolm. I wanted something better, and now I have it. Outside, my phone displayed dozens of notifications, industry news alerts announcing Meridian's stock in freefall, messages from prospective clients, updates from my team tracking the collapse in real time. I switched it to silent and walked through the afternoon sunshine, feeling neither triumph nor regret, only the quiet certainty that balance had been restored. 6 months later, I stood at the window of Phoenix Analytics' new headquarters, watching the city awaken below. We'd taken the entire 32nd floor of a downtown building, not from vanity, but necessity. In half a year, we'd grown from my original team of 17 to over 60 employees. The aftermath at Meridian had been swift and severe. Preston resigned within 24 hours of our meeting, followed by Malcolm a week later. The board fired the entire executive leadership within a month. Their stock eventually stabilized at 40% of its former value. Meridian still existed, reorganized, and chastened under new leadership. We occasionally competed for the same clients, which felt appropriate. Competition should be honest, transparent, based on merit rather than manipulation. My door opened quietly as Elena entered with 2 cups of coffee. The Westbrook team is here for the quarterly review. Everyone's set up in the main conference room. I accepted the coffee gratefully. And the new behavioral analysis module? Ready for demonstration. Marcus thinks they'll double their commitment once they see it. I nodded, taking a moment to appreciate how far we'd come. Elena was now our Chief Innovation Officer, running a team of 12 researchers developing methodologies that were revolutionizing our industry. Marcus headed client relations, bringing genuine partnership to relationships that had once been purely transactional. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked, noticing my contemplative mood. "Balance," I replied. "How things find their level eventually." She smiled. "Justice, you mean?" "Perhaps." I turned from the window. "But not vengeance." "There's a difference?" "Does the difference matter? The outcome is the same." I considered this as we walked toward the conference room. The outcome matters, yes. But so does how we got here. We built something valuable from the ashes. That's not revenge. That's renewal. The conference room doors opened to reveal my team, my partners now, not subordinates, engaged in animated conversation with the Westbrook executives. The atmosphere was electric with possibility and mutual respect. No one in this room knew the full extent of what had transpired behind the scenes with Meridian. They knew only that Phoenix had emerged at exactly the right moment to fill a market gap with integrity and innovation. The careful chess moves, the strategic patience, the deliberate pressure points, those details belonged to the past. As I took my place at the head of the table, I caught a headline scrolling across a muted financial news screen. Former Meridian CEO Malcolm Harding joins Regulatory Committee on Data Ethics. I allowed myself a small smile. Perhaps he'd learned something after all. "Good morning, everyone," I began. "Let's talk about the future." The room quieted, attention focusing forward. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting our boardroom in clear, uncompromising light, the kind that leaves no shadows for secrets to hide in, the kind that illuminates truth. I had not just survived being discarded. I had transformed it into something greater than revenge. I had created justice.